Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 23, starring Amanda James as herself.
Hello, everyone. It's
So,
me, Amanda James.
she's being real. So, today we're going to be going over Lorne's pre sentence report. So, he's facing judgment. And so, prior to him receiving his sentence, the judge needs to review the pre sentence report. And it's basically going to give him an idea of who Lorne is. And it's going to show if he's ever been in trouble before, what type of lifestyle he had, what was his upbringing. Just give an overall picture of who this man is, this myth, this mystery that's coming before him. So we're going to go over that. And for your viewing pleasure, we're not going to be showing the documents themselves just because they're a little bit difficult to read anyway. So it's not going to benefit anybody to see them. But I will put them in the description in a Google Drive so that you can peruse them. And you can also fact check and make sure that Amanda James is not throwing in anything that's going to make Lorne look bad.
Well, I'm
Okay.
going to test you guys. I'm going to throw in a couple of my own Lorne facts and just to see if anybody's actually checking because we
Wow.
could be lying.
That is true. That is true.
Be on the lookout.
So for your viewing pleasure, we have Lorne. So you can
Look at that.
you can look
That
at that
face.
face. I know. I know. So we can envision him sitting in jail with that sad face and just thinking about life, how everyone screwed him over and how that ended up leaving him in this type of a horrible, horrible situation.
Yeah, and how disgusting
Uh,
the prosecutor is
mhm.
for thinking that he would bring a camera along for anything other than the purposes of tourism, of enjoying his second time in Nashville.
Yeah,
They have a sick mind for thinking that.
I know. They went right there.
Mhm.
They should have known that.
Out
Hmm.
out of the blue, too. It's not like he said. It's not like he told the decoy what he wanted to do with the camera.
True.
They just thought camera equals naughty stuff.
Yeah,
20 years for you.
that's really unfair.
Mhm.
No wonder he's so upset.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see what the report has to say. So, this is for the United States of America versus Lorne Lynn Armstrong. And of course, AKA Lorne underscore A underscore 20014. So, this is prepared for the judge, and it's prepared by Lisa, who is a U.S. probation officer over in Bowling Green. So the sentencing date is going to be June 30th, 2008 at high noon. And it lists the offense. Of course, we know it, but we're going to read it anyway. Travel in interstate commerce to engage in illicit sexual conduct, not more than 30 years imprisonment and or $250,000 fine, and not less than 5 years up to life supervised release. And it's a Class B felony. So, release status. The defendant was arrested on a related state offense on October 18th, 2007. On March 5th, 2008, the defendant made his initial appearance pursuant to a writ of habeas corpus ad prosecundum and was arrested for the federal offense. At that same time, he waived his right to a detention hearing. The defendant was remanded to custody. On March 31st, 2008, the defendant pleaded guilty to the one count indictment pursuant to a written Rule 11C 1C plea agreement. He remains in custody pending sentencing. So there we have it. There's our little introduction.
Mhm.
So then we have the identifying data. We have his true name, Lorne Lynn Armstrong. Date of birth, October 18th, 1970. Age 37. Race, white, Hispanic origin, non Hispanic. Sex, yes, please. It's male.
Yeah.
And then education, high school graduate. Dependents, none.
Mhm.
Citizenship, United States. Although we don't want to claim him.
Yeah, I'd rather not.
He's close to
Okay,
Canada.
I was gonna say we could give him to Canada, but I'm pretty sure Canada wouldn't take him either.
Mm, okay. Well, we I
We're
guess we're
stuck with
stuck with
him.
him. Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. So his mailing address at that time was Warren County Regional Jail. Could you imagine having that mailing address? His legal address, it was with mother, Gwendolyn Armstrong in Skowhegan. His aliases, none. And one of our favorites, his gang affiliation. It says none, but that's not true.
But that's right. According to Lorne, he is affiliated with a gang, a well-known gang as well.
Yeah.
I believe it was the Crips,
Or the
and
blood.
it was the Bloods, right? It was one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And they reassured him that he ain't no predator.
That's right. That is right. So this one could either have a question mark or, have it stated there that he's one of the Bloods. But I think saying none, that's a problem for me because that's a lie.
That's untrue.
Yeah.
They did not do enough research. Oh, but you know what?
Mm.
Actually, I'm going to give him a break. This is probably before his affiliation because
Okay,
he
no,
was in
right.
the jail,
You're
and I
right.
think his affiliation began in prison.
Okay. Yeah, so he didn't know yet.
Right.
Okay. So now what we're going to do is go over part A, which is the offense. And we know this offense very well, but I do think it's fun to go over it again, again and again. I
Yes.
like to see how different people summarize it.
Hmm.
So it's going to get even better when we get to when they're talking about what he did, the actual crime, the narrative of the
Yeah.
crime. So here is the charge and conviction. On February 6, 2008, a one count indictment was returned to U.S. District Court for the Western District of Kentucky, Bowling Green Division, against Lorne Armstrong, aka Lorne underscore A underscore 20014. Specifically, the indictment alleged that on or about October 18th, 2007, Armstrong did knowingly travel in interstate commerce for the purpose of engaging in illicit sexual conduct in violation of 18 USC 2423B and E. So the fact that it says Armstrong did knowingly travel is in direct contradiction to what he says when he unknowingly traveled or unintentional travel.
Unintentionally, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going to take issue with that.
Hmm.
On March 31st, 2008, Armstrong pleaded guilty to the indictment pursuant to Written Rule 11C1C plea agreement. The factual basis for the plea is contained in paragraph 3 of the plea agreement. As outlined in the plea agreement, the government at the time of sentencing will A, agree that a sentence of 60 months followed by a term of supervised release for life is the appropriate disposition of this case. B, agree to a felony fine at the low end of the guideline range, provided the court determines the defendant has the ability to pay a fine. And C, agree not to seek any additional charges for conduct by the defendant in relation to the KBI investigation and his subsequent arrest on October 18th, 2007. And we already know that is huge.
Yeah, it's one and done here. They're
Yep.
going to charge him with the interstate travel or whatever, however it's worded, but they're not going to seek any other convictions or charge him with anything else
Mhm.
for that situation.
Exactly. So then they're going to talk about the scoring system and how they came to the score of 23. So the base offense level that they agreed upon was 24 instead of 36 or 37.
Hmm.
So they added 2 for use of a computer, and then the acceptance of responsibility subtracted 3 from that. So we end up with 23. The parties further agreed that the criminal history of the defendant would be determined upon the completion of this pre-sentence report. Both parties reserved the right to object to the Section 4A1.1 calculation of the defendant's criminal history. The parties agreed not to seek a departure from the criminal history category pursuant to Section 4A1.3. As noted in paragraph 12 of the plea agreement, the defendant knowingly and voluntarily waived his right to directly appeal his conviction and the resulting sentence pursuant to a bunch of codes. However, that the sentence imposed is within the applicable advisory guideline range, and to contest or collaterally attack his conviction and the resulting sentence pursuant to 28 USC 2255 or otherwise. The defendant understood and agreed that nothing in the plea agreement should be construed as a waiver by the United States of its right to appeal the sentence under 18 USC 3742. So even after the plea agreement is agreed upon, they can say we don't like it when he gets his sentence. If it's not,
Oh, okay.
if it's not what they actually wanted, because of course the judge doesn't have to accept what they say.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that is good for the government. The United States approves.
Yes.
So Armstrong was arrested on a related state offense on October 18th, 2007. On March 5th, 2008, he made his initial appearance pursuant to a writ of habeas corpus ad prosequendum and was arrested for a federal offense. At that same time, Armstrong waived his right to a detention hearing. He was remanded to custody. On March 31st, 2008, Armstrong pleaded guilty to the one-count indictment pursuant to Written Rule 11C1C plea agreement. He remains in custody pending sentencing. So remaining in custody, he looks exactly like he does in our little background picture there. So just keep that in mind.
Except he's in a jail jumpsuit.
Yes, in that
Hope
orange
I'm the
jumpsuit.
right one.
Oh, okay. So you're thinking maybe he was in the Hamburglar outfit.
I
Maybe
kind of hope
that's it.
so.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
like it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they put male prisoners in pink jumpsuits just to be mean, I think.
Well, they'll put him in pink underwear.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard
That's
that.
another thing too. It's just in case they ever escape. Yeah,
Beware of men with pink underwear, ladies.
that's true. That's
It
true.
means
They
they
could
escaped
be.
from prison.
Yes, exactly. So now we're going to get to the offense conduct. And Amanda James, if you would do us the honors of seeing what this author had to say.
Yeah. The following information was taken from investigative material provided by the Assistant U.S. Attorney in this case. Between September 17th and October 18th, 2007, Lorne Lynn Armstrong engaged in online chatting with Kayla underscore Princess 94, a person he believed to be a 13-year-old minor. However, this person was actually a participant in the Kentucky Bureau of Investigation undercover sting operation, whose goal was to expose online sexual predators. A portion of the online chats between Armstrong and quote unquote Kayla were of an explicit sexual nature and contained discussion of oral, vaginal, and anal sex. There were over 400 pages of printed chat material between Armstrong and Kayla that occurred during the time of this offense. In addition to being extensive, the chats involve graphic discussions between Armstrong and Kayla. A review of the chat materials reveals Armstrong instructed Kayla on how to delete evidence of their chats so her parents would not be able to see they had been communicating, encouraged her to buy a prepaid telephone card so they could speak on the telephone without the call showing up on her parents' telephone bill, and he taught her how to masturbate. During this time period, Armstrong, in addition to chatting, transmitted several nude images of himself to Kayla using a webcam. These images included him just walking around naked, as well as very close screenshots of his genitals. In his chats, Armstrong would ask Kayla if she would like to touch him and explained how she could cause white stuff to come out of him.
Like
Arm-
confetti.
They're surprised at the end. Oh man. Armstrong additionally cautioned Kayla about giving out information in her chats and told her there were people on the internet who were not nice and or did not have good intentions.
Ooh, that is a doozy.
I love the thought of him sitting in jail with that pouty bitch face reading this.
I know. No, I didn't. I did
I said
not.
no. I told her no.
They didn't say that in here.
They did not. It's weird.
That
It's all
nothing in
weird.
here says Armstrong said he didn't want to. He said that he didn't want to talk about that with her because it wasn't right
Hmm.
to stop staring at the camera while he's walking around naked.
Yeah,
He
she
didn't.
didn't have to look.
Right, exactly.
She didn't have to. That's on Kayla.
Even when he did that one where he was looking over his shoulder because he was showing his butt.
On his butt. Teenage girls love looking at 40-year-old men's butts.
Wait a second. He was only 36 at that time.
Well, I'm rounding up.
Yeah. So yeah, that is an excellent summary.
Hmm.
Excellent summary. So now that basically takes care of what was happening from September to October. So now what happened October 18th?
Well, on October 18th, 2007, a very special day,
Mm-hmm.
Armstrong left his home in Tennessee and drove to Bowling Green, Kentucky, for the purpose of engaging in sex with Kayla. The trip took approximately an hour and a half to make. When he arrived at what he believed to be Kayla's residence, he was arrested by the agents with the KBI. During a search of Armstrong's vehicle, agents located a box of 14 condoms, a digital camera, and a silver bracelet that was intended as a gift for Kayla.
Wow. Lorne was looking forward to a very special night, not with Kayla. He was looking forward to using all 14 condoms
By
with
himself.
Come on now. Come on.
Well, we know that he does use
He
condoms by
does use
himself.
condoms by himself. That's personal. But he was going to bars. He was going to be out all night drinking, and everyone was going to be around him celebrating his 37th birthday. He was going to be up there karaokeing, and the women were going to go wild. I'm surprised that he only got one box.
I know. And well, it's because he was broke. He could only afford one.
Oh,
He scrounged up change from I was going to say his couch, but he didn't have a couch. So
burn.
yeah, somewhere he scrounged up change to buy those condoms. Yeah, he was just stopping by Kayla's house to make sure she was okay. Stopping by on his way to the karaoke bar, an hour and a half out of state on his way.
Right, he was on his way. He just had to stop somewhere real quick.
Yeah. They left some stuff out though. I mean, it's a good summary.
Hmm.
It's a short and sweet. It hits the important points, but um, it doesn't mention how he asked her for a kiss 3 times, um, and the things he offered to go to the truck to get the condoms.
And
His
the
conversation with
gift
Chris
that he gave
Hansen.
her.
The gift that he insisted for years and years that they asked him to bring a gift for her, and they
Right.
never did. We've read
No.
that chat log. He voluntarily said, "I'm going to bring you a gift so you think of me." She didn't ask him for anything.
No. And the gift for him, of course, was her panties. So, didn't he say that he wanted her to bring an extra pair, but also not to wear any?
He did. And in the phone call, he quizzed her and asked her, "What else are you going to bring in your bag?" And reminded her that it was her extra pair of panties. That at first he said he wanted her to wear them. I'm assuming, oh, he did say the white panties. He
Yes.
specifically chose the white panties. He wanted her to bring them in her bag, and I assume it's so she could leave them with him.
Right. Do you think that he would have done with those what he did with Jamie's panties and Winnie's panties?
I do.
Put them right on his head.
I do think he would have, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And he received panties. He put them right to his nose and was like, he did it in front of Emma and Dan.
Oh my God.
Then he did it on the phone.
Yeah, you could hear him inhaling over and over again
He's gonna.
when he got Jamie's panties.
He almost passed out. He's
I know, I think
hyperventilated.
he did. I know. He must have got lightheaded.
Yeah.
And there were thong panties. Those go like in your ass.
Yeah.
Nobody should be smelling anyone's panties ever.
If you're doing it right now, stop it.
It. Those go in somebody's ass. Stop it.
People are into some things, okay?
They, they are. I don't want to know about it. I'll shame you for
That we will shame.
it.
We will shame. That is actually the tagline of our channel. We will shame. So, um, so anyway, so yeah, so he had the gift for Kayla that he was going to bring, and of course, she had her gift for him.
Mhm.
So then we go to victim impact, and I think this is funny where it says there's no impact, or I'm sorry, there's no victim to this offense other than society at large.
We're all victims of Lorne. And we are for having to read the things that he wrote and listen to the things that he said.
Right. Yeah. The entire world. I mean, he did apologize to the world, and he was right to do that. But we
Hmm.
but we don't accept.
Mm-mm.
No.
No way.
So then we have adjustment for obstruction. There's no evidence the defendant obstructed justice during the investigation or prosecution of this case. Adjustment for acceptance of responsibility. Upon the advice of his defense counsel, the defendant declined to make any statement regarding the offense. At the time of his guilty plea, the defendant admitted to the essential facts of the offense. It appears he has demonstrated acceptance of responsibility and is entitled to the decrease for this adjustment. I don't like
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. I think we're going to have some disagreement there. Just
We
accepting the plea
mhm.
is an acceptance of responsibility in this the way it's worded here.
Yeah.
But we know he's never accepted responsibility.
No.
He even said he took the plea just because they were threatening him with a much longer sentence.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we should put those points back on there.
Let's add him on. We can do that now, right? It's not too late.
We can, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus 3 points for you, Lorne Lynn.
That's another 10 years that we're So now it's going to get into his criminal history. So as a juvenile, he didn't have any. He was a good boy.
Hmm.
And then we're going to get to his adult criminal convictions. So now we are going to talk about the most famous OUI in history. You may be thinking of a celebrity. I remember Paris Hilton. She was made a pretty big spectacle when she got hers and went to jail. But there's been a lot of celebrities, of course, that get busted, and um, we see their mugshots. I would love to see Lorne's mugshot, especially because he hit his mouth.
Oh yeah, and like broke his tooth.
Yes.
Where's that?
Somebody find it,
Somebody
please.
find it, please. Yes.
Shoot us an email. So let's talk about this conviction. So we do also, courtesy of George Glass, thank you so much for shooting us the email with the actual accident report. Greatly appreciated. So we're going to be talking about that. Some of it overlaps a little bit. So let's just go to the crash report. We'll start there. And I'm going to link that as well so that everyone can see it. But this is just the police report. So at that time, Allstate Insurance was covering this vehicle, which was a GMC van in 1992, and most of the damage was in the front. Um, the pre the pre-crash actions was following the roadway, and then there were no contributing circumstances with the vehicle, like it wasn't defective or anything like that. So the driver, of course, was Lorne, but the owner was not Lorne. Who is the owner?
What?
Yes,
Was
you guessed
Gwendolyn
it.
Linda Armstrong,
That's right.
Lauren's mother.
Ugh, I wonder what she thought of this.
She thought he was stupid. She thought he was a stupid drunk. You asshole! You crashed my van.
Yeah, of course he crashed her van.
Hmm.
Of course it's not his. So then we have two occupants. And I know that there's been a little bit of question as to who the second one was, but we have it confirmed here, unless somebody was using a different ID.
Oh, yeah, that's possible, but I wouldn't use this person's ID if I,
Right,
you know,
right.
that's not a good idea.
So the first occupant, of course, is Lorne. They have him down as being born, of course, in October 18th, 1970, and that date just seems to run the whole course through this case with us, doesn't it?
Hmm.
October
Hmm.
18th. And then the other one is Roy.
Yeah, it was right. In the story, Lauren said it was Paul. He didn't want his brother walking home 25 miles,
Hmm.
so he drove Paul home. But we speculated maybe Roy came along for the ride and they had already dropped Paul off.
Could be. That definitely could have been it. Interestingly enough, they do have Roy's birthday as 1941.
I saw that too.
I don't think that that's true. So we'll put that down as a clerical error.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. So as far as injuries are concerned, Roy was fine. Roy's real loose. He's just if
Like
he
a,
hits something, his body's just gonna go with it.
yeah, like
Because
a
he's such
cooked
a
spaghetti noodle.
That's right. And then we have Lorne, who did have an injury. They said he had a concussion. And I think that's just based on hitting his face on the steering wheel. And that's what the officer noticed. So for Roy said that he wasn't hurt and the officer didn't notice any injuries. But for Lorne, it wasn't pretty noticeable. So that's why we need to see this mugshot.
Yeah, because he's got half a tooth in it.
Exactly. And I'm sure tears in his eyes.
Yeah, he's making that face that that the face that he's crying in the his original mugshot.
Yeah.
It's like that, but
Yeah.
there's a broken tooth and blood on his face.
So they weren't wearing seatbelts.
Of course not. They're
Yeah.
lawbreakers. They're
Right.
gonna drive drunk. Who needs a seatbelt?
Who
They're
needs
country boys too.
Absolutely. Yeah, country boys do not wear seatbelts. That is a rule. So then the report goes on to say, well, first of all, now this happened on August 6th, 2006. And it was at 4:50 a.m. So just imagine it's a beautiful summer morning. About 5 a.m. the sun is rising and you have the Armstrong boys careening down.
Into your house.
Yeah, into your house, exactly. So on that day they talk about what was going on, with the road and the weather. So this was a straight road. So it wasn't like it was a hairpin turn or anything
Mm-mm.
crazy like that. Straight. The weather was dry and clear. There was nothing wrong with the road. It was perfectly fine. There was no traffic. And it still all went wrong.
Yeah.
Still all went wrong.
He fell asleep.
Well, that's what he said. That's what he said. He was tired, yeah. So now as we go through the next part, what I wanted to do was show a drawing. So the police, they made an illustration, and that's very common in an accident report. There's going to be an illustration showing where the vehicles were, where the vehicles traveled, any bodies on the ground, things like that. And so they did the same thing for Lorne's accident, but we wanted to make it a little bit more realistic. And so we enlisted our friend, Lyric Mars, Lyric Marie. You know her as, or Money Girl. I've seen her as Money Girl as well. But she made this more realistic for us. And so, as we can see here, if you take a look at your screen, this is the very beginning of that drawing. And you can see where we have Route 150 down at the bottom. That's where Lorne was supposed to be going. He was supposed to be all the way down there. Those tracks were not supposed to be where they are. So Lorne left the road, and you can see that there are beer bottles and there's cans just strewn all about. And we're going to hear about them when we get to the officer's narrative. This is based on fact, okay? This is not, she didn't take any creative license here. So what we can see, we're going to follow the tracks, okay? So we're following, and then we get to the ditch. So there's the ditch that it hit. And then you don't see the tracks anymore. And that's because it left the earth.
Guess it went airborne.
So it went airborne and it flew, right? And it flew all the way over here. And that green box is a house. So as you can see, again, we have more bottles, more cans, and then the vehicle is right up against that house because it hit it. And then outside of that vehicle, we have our occupants. Now, they weren't ejected, but I imagine they left the vehicle at some point, right? And I imagine that how they're laying here is exactly what happened. Roy, he opened the door and he fell right out.
Fell out, right.
So he's
And
at the
stayed
bottom.
there.
He stayed there, exactly. And he is holding a bottle as well.
Well, he's not going to let go of that.
No, that would be a party foul. We don't see any beer spilled.
Never.
So, yeah. So we can see Roy. Now, if you look really close, you can see his mustache. And that is, I think, one of my favorite parts of this. It's so great. And his wild hair. He has a giant head of hair. Then on the other side, you have, obviously, Lorne, because he's wearing a hat.
Of course.
You know? And he also has a bottle. He did drop it. But he does have a bottle as well because, of course, you know, he has to. The party's not over just because you get into a car. You know what I mean?
Definitely not.
So that's actually what happened. Okay.
Yeah. Lyric spoke to the responding officers.
Yeah. And they remembered it perfectly well.
Of course. Who would forget?
Yeah. So we're going to leave that up here while we go back to the pre-sentence report and go over a little bit more detail as to what happened. So it talks about on the top here what he was found guilty of. So he was found guilty of an OUI. So that again happened on August 6th, 2006. At that time, he was 35. So his conviction was operating under the influence, and he was found guilty at the Skowhegan District Court. And then he wasn't sentenced until December 20th, so right before Christmas. So it's either a holiday or his birthday that just get ruined.
Yeah.
And then he pleaded guilty. Lorne likes to plead guilty, I think.
Yeah, but it wasn't really his fault. It's never really his fault.
Yeah.
They just don't understand.
That is true. So he was sentenced to 2 days in jail. He was ordered to pay a $500 fine, and his license was suspended for 90 days. Now, that seems to be a pretty light sentence
Yeah.
considering this massive accident that he caused and the fact that he damaged somebody's home.
Mm-hmm.
He took out guide wires for a telephone pole and he also hit a mailbox.
Mm-hmm. He could have killed someone.
He absolutely could have killed somebody. I mean, because at that point in the summertime, the sun comes up really early.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are out running or
Checking their
biking.
mailbox.
They could, oh my gosh, what if that person was checking their mail? I know. I know. So, yeah, I mean, even just by him hitting the house, he could have killed somebody inside.
Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy, those accidents that happen. I remember hearing one of somebody in their garage with the door closed that was killed by somebody who drove into it. Isn't that crazy? They were just in there. They had like a little woodworking shop, I think. So they're just in there. The door's shut. What could happen? Here comes this drunk person barreling through.
Yeah, vehicles are death machines, especially a
Yeah.
big van.
Mm-hmm. And especially with Lorne driving it.
Right.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. So he's very lucky that, that also he didn't kill his brother
Mm-hmm.
or himself. I mean, whatever. But he didn't kill his brother, So
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that he only had to pay $500.
And
I
spent
guess
2 days in jail.
right, in 2 days in jail. Yeah. So let's see. So what they say here, the attorney representation was not noted in the provided case material. The defendant, who was operating a GMC van, crashed into a residence on Harmony Road in Cambridge. He was determined to be under the influence of alcohol at the time of the incident. According to the narrative for this offense written by a deputy with the Somerset County Sheriff's Department, the officers noted the defendant had an odor of alcoholic beverage about his person, that his eyes were glassy, and that he was unsteady on his feet. The defendant denied being intoxicated.
I've been drinking coffee. Imagine Lawrence swaying. He just crashed into a fucking
I
house.
know.
And he's out of the van. Roy's on the ground.
Right. He's lying out just like how we see.
Yes, because that is what happened.
That's
He's
what
just
happened.
laying on the ground. And Lauren is swaying back and forth, surrounded by empty Bud Light bottles, saying, I'm not fucking drunk.
Yeah.
I've been drinking coffee. And telling the officer, my brother wanted to walk home, so I was driving him home. He's trying to explain to the officer how actually he's the hero and the victim
Yes.
in this situation. And he's all mumble mouthed because he's hammered, slurring and swaying. We need body cam footage.
I agree. So the officer observed several Bud Light bottles in the van, as well as an empty cardboard box that had contained 12 Bud Light bottles. So they had a 12 pack. They drained that that 12 pack through the bottles everywhere. And then of course that cardboard box was left empty. All the bottles that the officer found were empty as well. The
Oh,
officer noted the van's tire tracks left the roadway approximately 130 feet before hitting the house.
wow.
So he was flying through that yard.
Mhm. And then he just so happened to hit the ditch.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I bet you that slowed him down.
Oh, but I'm sure you're right. I mean, imagine if there was no ditch there and he is just accelerating, he's passed out, foot on the gas, and slams into the damn house. Would have broken more than a tooth.
Do you think that Roy was awake at that time?
No,
He was
because
passed out too.
either he was passed out or he was so blackout drunk that he couldn't see straight anyway.
Yeah.
Because you think he would grab the wheel.
Right,
There's
exactly.
a hundred and they traveled 130 feet before they hit the the ditch
Yeah.
before they hit the house, there's some time there for Roy to grab the wheel or for him to say, "Hey, Lauren, bud, you're off the road. We're headed for a house."
Right, exactly. He's just sitting there going, "Whoa."
Yeah, he's just like, "Wow, things are looking the road's looking kind of swervy, Lon." No, I think he was passed out.
Yeah, I agree. The van hit a mailbox and broke the guide wire on a telephone pole before continuing into a ditch. The van the van then went airborne for about 15 feet before it impacted the residence on its south wall. The tire tracks were straight from the road, and there were no apparent correction marks.
Yeah, so he didn't just lose control of the vehicle or something and try to correct and do, and it shows that he passed out
Yeah,
and just drove off the road.
just drove off the road and then went straight. He was going straight, but in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
So now let's go back to we're going to move on from this OUI. So let's go back to Lorne sitting in his cell. Okay.
Hmm.
And we're going to talk about another incident. So on August 21st, 2006, the defendant was arrested in Skowhegan and charged with negotiate a worthless instrument, a misdemeanor offense. Worthless instrument.
That is Lorne. Lorne is a worthless instrument.
I can think of a couple things that could be called a worthless instrument. But apparently this was a check. So
I didn't know about this. This is very funny.
this is funny. This case was filed in Skowhegan District Court, and then it gives the case ID. It was alleged the defendant wrote a check in the amount of $45.47 to the Canaan Country Store that wasn't honored by the bank due to insufficient funds. How can you write a bad check to the Canaan Country Store? How cute is that? There's a country store.
He wrote a $45 check that bounced.
And he knew that there was a high likelihood that there wasn't going to be funds in there. Or he was playing a game of, I kind of hope there's going to be funds in there by the time they
Hmm.
deposit that because it's going to
Right.
take a couple of days, right,
Hmm.
to have that happen.
Hmm.
So, a 5-day notice was issued on October 11th, 2006. However, the defendant allegedly never took care of the check. So he had a chance to pay it. But
45 bucks.
yeah, but probably by that time he still didn't have the money.
Hmm.
So,
And he's just a bum and he
mhm.
doesn't, he's probably thinking, what's the worst they could do to me? Over
Yes.
$45. I'm not going to pay them. Well, you got arrested over for. So now, see, I didn't know about this.
Mhm.
This is really funny to me because remember how much shit he's talked about Chris Hansen for writing bad checks?
Yes.
At least Chris Hansen's checks were a substantial amount of money
Mhm.
to get in trouble. I mean, if you're going to get in trouble, am I going to get arrested over 45 bucks? No. That is shameful. If I'm going to get arrested, it's going to be over $10,000. Make it worth it at
Yeah,
least.
exactly. If you're going to write a check when you know you don't have the money, make it for like 1 million.
Right. Make it
Yeah.
worth the arrest at least. 45 bucks. That is pathetic.
I know, it's so funny. So then what he said was according to the defendant, he made payment on the check, but he never notified the sheriff's department that he had done so. And then on February 21st, 2007, this charge was dismissed.
Okay, so maybe he did make payment on it, but he still got arrested for it.
I know, isn't that funny? He's probably just thinking, I never have to go there again. I just won't go.
Mm-hmm.
They have his check like taped to the wall with his picture.
Mm-hmm.
The wall
Yes,
of shame.
do not serve this man.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's another incident. I know, I'm sure you're so surprised that he has a little bit of a history. But there's another one that we have to talk about. And that is a criminal collateral response provided by the Western District of Washington Seattle Division. Noted the defendant had been charged with no valid operator's license without identification. It appears this case was filed on May 27th, 1997 in Thurston County District Court in Thurston County, Washington. And on May 9th, 1997, the defendant provided proof of his license. It appears the defendant's bail was $90 was forfeited. Bail of $90.
My God.
Information provided does not indicate if the defendant pleaded guilty or not in this matter. I'm going to say he pled guilty.
Yeah, but well, that's his track record.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. And then of course we have the pending charge we just went through. And they're just talking about exactly what we were just going over.
But it does say that bail in the case of the pending charge here, which is the interstate travel for inducing a minor less than 16 years of age, the bail was 50,000 cash. And nobody put that bail up for him.
Oh.
After all he did for his family,
That's true.
he bought them heating oil.
He did buy them heating oil. They couldn't bail him out for 50 grand.
Yeah. Well, I know. And they stole all Betty's money from him that he stole from her.
That is true.
They could have at least
That
thrown
is
some
true.
in, but nobody even tried.
Oh gosh. The worst. Well, speaking of his family, let's talk about his family.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's some personal data related to him. We're going to talk about offender characteristics. So we have personal and family data. So would you like to share how Lorne became Lorne?
Yeah. The defendant was born to the union of Ralph Armstrong Sr. and Gwendolyn Armstrong, née Cooley. He is the youngest of 6 children born to his parents. The defendant advised he lived in Skowhegan, Maine, or that immediate area until he was either 19 or 20 years of age. He reported he then enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and was stationed at Anchorage, Alaska from 1991 to 1993. After he left the Air Force, the defendant revealed he moved back and forth from Maine to Washington several times from 1994 to 2001, at which time he had once again returned to Maine. In August 2007, the defendant advised he relocated to Nashville, Tennessee to pursue his singing career. Upon his release from custody, the defendant indicated he would return to Maine.
Well, why stop your pursuit of a singing career, Lorne?
I know, go back to Nashville.
Go back to
Start all
Nashville.
over again. That's
Jeez.
funny that he said he moved to Nashville to pursue his singing career, which we know he did not pursue anything in Nashville.
Right,
He
exactly.
pursued a young girl, is what he pursued.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was going karaokeing. Oh.
I mean, if that's what we consider pursuing a career, then
Well, you know what? That is what somebody at a record label told him to do.
that's true. They gave him a card.
They gave him a card and a brochure, I think, that had places to go. And he's like, okay. And he like walked out of there thinking he's going to take a meeting next time
Hmm.
because somebody's going to notice. And then maybe he really did think that when he got the card from the producer.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. He bragged about getting the card from the producer
Yeah.
like it meant something.
Right, exactly.
It's like when you're a teenage, somebody sees a teenage girl in the local mall and says, have you ever thought about modeling?
Yes.
You would be great at modeling. Here's my card. Give me a call. We'll put together a portfolio for you without realizing that portfolio is going to cost you $3,000. It's not an opportunity for you. It's an opportunity for them to just make money off you.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's either going to cost your parents several $100s
Hmm.
or you're going to have the photos taken in a van. It's like either one of those,
Right.
you know.
Neither is a good a good outcome.
Right. So then on April 11th, my birthday,
Uh-huh.
2008, the
Mhm.
U.S. probation officer from the District of Maine conducted a home visit with the defendant's mother, Gwendolyn, at her residence located in Skowhegan. They noted she resides in a one-bedroom home, but the defendant and his brother had began building an addition to the home. Oh my God. Which can be made into a bedroom for the defendant. Mrs.
Mhm.
Armstrong advised the defendant intends to reside with her upon his release from custody. The investigating officer noted his office would have no issue assuming supervision of the defendant upon his release from custody.
So Lorne did move in with his mother when he was released, right?
I don't know. It's possible that he did, but I do know that there was something that was said that he actually wasn't allowed to live there because his mom at some point went to Section 8.
Mm-hmm.
And that's through his uncle, of course. His uncle owns pretty much everything in Cornville, I think.
Right.
At least all the buildings that his family lives in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so she went Section 8, and I think that there must have been some kind of a restriction on that where Lorne wasn't going to be allowed to live there.
Yeah, felons can't live in Section 8 housing,
Okay.
from what I understand.
Okay, well that makes sense then that he wouldn't be able
Mm-hmm.
to here. So maybe at that point he wasn't yet, or she wasn't yet.
Mm-hmm.
So could you? I wonder what that addition looked like.
Oh, I'm sure it was really professionally done and structurally sound.
You're right.
I'm
You're
sure it
right.
wasn't some plywood that they got from the dump,
Yeah.
uh, gorilla taped together.
Gorilla taped.
Yeah, gorilla glue. They make it's like duct tape,
What a
like
choice
throw
of
around.
words.
I didn't. It took me a minute. Yeah, gorilla tape for the gorilla.
Yeah, I bet you it just looked absolutely horrific. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, so I'm imagining the additions that Lauren has made to his quote unquote home.
Hmm.
I'm thinking of the carport.
Hmm. Yeah, I bet it looked like
It
that.
looked like that. Yeah,
It was
exactly.
just a roof and a couple support beams. There is no walls.
Yeah. And then
He's
it
gonna put a
collapsed.
Yeah, he's gonna put a fancy chandelier in there though.
A chandelier, yes. Yep. And a window.
Hmm.
It's got to be a window. Always
And a
windows.
metal toilet,
A prison toilet. Yeah, why not? Why
just like
wouldn't you have
home.
one of those? Yeah, exactly. So now we're going to get to where Lauren is talking about what it was like growing up. So, when asked about his upbringing, the defendant reported his parents separated when he, the defendant, was approximately 2 years old. He indicated his mother met a man named Dale when he was 3 years old. He described Dale as the only real father he knew growing up. When the two families combined, the defendant advised they had to move to a bigger home. He indicated his mother and Dale remained in a relationship for almost 30 years, but this relationship deteriorated when Dale cheated on his mother. The defendant explained Dale had established a relationship with the defendant's ex sister in law, and the relationship came as a shock to the entire family. I bet you he loved telling that story.
What's another one of his victim stories?
Hmm.
Even though he's not the victim in that story,
Well, wait a
his
second.
mother is.
Yeah, but he lost his dad.
You're right, at the tender age of 30.
Yeah, exactly. However, the defendant described his childhood as good. He reported he has difficulty with people leaving him and explained this comes from his biological father leaving, his older siblings going off to college, and so forth. The defendant revealed he was taught to be honest. He added it has also been very important to him for people to think highly of him. The defendant added he longed for more attention as a child and indicated he doesn't feel he was given much attention from his mother until her relationship with Dale ended.
Oh, interesting. So he didn't get affection from his mother until he was 30 years old.
Yeah. She's like, "Who are you?"
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there's some truth in that. Not that he was taught to be honest, because obviously he's not. But the difficulty with people leaving him, I don't think it comes from his biological father leaving because he was 2 years old when he left.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense. I think he did crave attention from his siblings though.
Yeah.
And when they didn't give it to him or when they went off to live their own lives, he took that personally. But the part where he said it's important for him for it's important to him for people to think highly of him. I think what that means more is more than he just wants people to think he's a good guy. He wants people to idolize him the way he idolized them.
Yes.
He
Yeah,
wants to be the
definitely.
hero.
Yep, he wants to be the hero. He doesn't want to just hear, "Thanks, Lorne," when he would get somebody heating oil or
Mhm.
when he'd give them Christmas, presents. He wants that to be at the top of their mind all the
Mhm.
time, that they're going
Yeah.
to treat him special because of what he did.
Yeah, because I think Lorne either there's no in between with him. People aren't just okay or some good and some bad. He either puts them up on a pedestal like his mother,
Hmm.
who he says does no wrong, she's perfect in every way, or they're a rotten piece of shit
Yeah.
like Ralph and Lori.
Hmm.
There's no in between. And oh shit. We talked about this before, but that's like a symptom of I think it's borderline personality disorder,
Hmm.
is where, again, there's no in between. You either put someone up on a really high pedestal or they do everything wrong. You have to either idolize or, um, I was thinking of Jody because
Hmm.
Jody was the same way and she was described that way
Yeah.
during her trial, and it reminded me of Lorne.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also how they're treating him at any particular moment.
Hmm.
That's going to say how he feels about them. So, if he's like, for example, if Roy is at his house helping him and working on his thing, then Roy's a really hard worker and he's got to take care of Roy and
Hmm.
all of that. But then also, when he's not doing that, Roy is just an alcoholic. Everyone's annoyed with him all the time because he can't stop drinking. And I'm sure that those things are true. I'm sure Roy is difficult,
Yeah.
as somebody in the family. Um, but certainly the way that it relates to Lorne, it all has to do with how they're treating him,
Hmm.
and so he's going to treat them a certain way or think about them in a certain way. It's kind of like when you think about people like Dan or Will. If they're getting along with him and they're not crossing a line with him as far as his women are concerned, then
Hmm.
he thinks they're great. He wants them to move up to Maine. Like, I'm going to get a plot of land and we're all going to have houses. And, you should move up here too. And he's very much like that. But then, of
Yeah.
course, as soon as it turns and they do something that he doesn't like, then they're pieces of shit. They need to back off and all of that.
Yeah, Emma's another good example.
Yeah.
She's either his best friend in the whole world and everybody else's best friend too, or she's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
depending on what he can get from her, if
Right.
what role she's playing, what she's facilitating. If she's friends with his girlfriend and can keep an eye on her, and
Hmm.
or just leave her house in the middle of the night to go pick his girlfriend up from the middle of the desert.
Yeah, right. Get there in
Then,
a half hour.
yeah, then she's the best friend.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. I think it's interesting that he revealed he was taught to be honest. That's such a strange statement. It's certainly not one that we haven't heard from
Hmm.
Lorne. And I'm so curious about why he brings that up so much. I mean, when people talk about growing up and the things that maybe their parents taught them or anything like that, it's like being taught to be honest. That's such a strange thing to highlight because it seems like, well, yeah, of course. It's kind of like they taught me to share.
Right.
They taught me not to hit.
Hmm.
Those things. It's kind of the obvious thing. And I wonder why he points that out specifically. I wonder if it's because he lies about everything.
Could be. I mean, it's strange. It's also strange that maybe not strange, but I mean, I wonder if they asked him how his mother and Dale's relationship ended, and then he told the story about cheating, or
Mhm.
if he just volunteered that out with the story. I'm guessing he just volunteered it.
I would imagine so. I could see him doing that, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I guess it is kind of significant because it was with Roy's ex-wife. That makes it significant.
Mhm.
But if it was just a case of cheating, I don't know, just say their relationship ended after 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something in it as well for Lorne when it comes to cheating. Because if you remember that he's talked about that woman, Denise, who was supposed to be his first,
Hmm.
he said that they broke up because she lied or something, or maybe there was some cheating. I
Hmm.
think it was because she lied, and then he couldn't remember what it was. It's like, well, you broke up with her because she lied, but you don't remember what it was?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems strange. It seems like you would remember, that there was one thing, this is why you broke up.
Yeah. Well, I think the truth is she probably broke up with him because we know Lorne doesn't break up with anyone.
That, well, that is true. Yeah, that is definitely true. If it ever happened,
Right.
you know. So yeah, I think that there are some things in here that stand out. The honest thing, also the cheating, because it seems to be a really big theme with him, the cheating.
Hmm.
And I wonder if it's because that means it's not a mutual breakup, it's somebody's fault,
Hmm.
and I can be the victim of that person.
Well, it kind of goes back to being left behind.
Hmm.
He has issues with being left behind. And if somebody ends a relationship because of cheating, then they're left behind,
Hmm.
so maybe I don't know, maybe that's part of it, one of his big hangups.
And it could be also with how people treated his mom, maybe after this was over. Because
Hmm.
clearly Dale was at fault, right? I mean,
Yeah.
clearly. And so nobody's going to look at her and say, well, it's your fault that the relationship
Right.
ended. I think everybody was probably pretty angry at him.
Hmm.
So I wonder if there's something in that as well. I think it does come with being a victim.
Well, what's funny is that he blames Kathy, Dale's ex-wife,
Mhm.
just as much as he blames Dale. In fact, it sounded like he blamed Kathy more because she was going around town hitting on all the elderly men. He would
That
go
is
for a
funny.
walk every day and she'd come out and hit on him.
Yeah.
So she lured him with her female powers
Yeah.
away from Lauren's mother. When, if you're going to really look at who's to blame, obviously it's shitty to have an affair with a man who is married or who is, in a 30-year relationship, especially with your ex mother in law. That's fucked up. Okay. Kathy was fucked up. But she wasn't in a committed relationship at that time. She wasn't cheating on anyone.
Yes, she
Dale,
was.
no, she wasn't. She wasn't with Roy anymore.
Are you sure?
No, not. I thought she was Roy's ex-wife at the time.
Oh, I don't. I was under the impression that she was still married to Roy.
Well, then that makes well, okay, so my point, even if she was married to Roy, then my point still stands that in the relationship with Dale and Lauren's mother and Kathy, Dale is the one who cheated on Mama Gwen,
Correct.
not Kathy. He's the one who had a responsibility to Lauren's mother. If
True.
Lauren wants to be mad at her for cheating on his brother,
Hmm.
then fine. But I mean, the responsibility is on Dale here. He's the one who was supposed to be faithful to Mama Gwen.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, now I need to know if they were married at the time because I thought they had already split up. That adds an extra layer of hills have eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, someone's gonna know.
Yeah. The
So,
dating pool in Cornville is just so small. You have to go seduce your father-in-law, essentially.
well, they lived close together. So she went out there in her short shorts, shaking her ass.
She did,
You
but
know,
she was hitting on all the elderly men.
I
Why
know.
did
That's
she
what I said.
find a different elderly man?
She wanted that one.
She wanted Dale, yeah.
And she got him. And then they had kids.
How embarrassing.
I know, that's crazy. Yeah, so if anybody knows that story a little bit better, as far as Roy being married to Kathy at the time, please let us know.
Because if that's the case, then the victims in this story here are Mama Gwen and Roy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Lauren is not. Lauren
No.
is not. I can understand being angry on behalf of,
Mhm.
but his dad didn't leave him. He was 30 years old.
No. His mom's boyfriend left her.
Yes,
He was a
exactly.
grown man.
Exactly.
I never thought he'd leave us kids.
Oh,
The youngest
I know.
kids was 30 years old, Lauren.
Yeah, I know. How funny is that?
Grow up.
I wonder if anybody else considered him like their dad, or when the relationship came to an end, still considered him at that time when it happened their dad and felt that their dad was leaving their mother.
I don't know. One of the brothers told him he'd punch him. He wanted to punch him.
Oh, because he cheated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably Paul.
You weren't so old, I'd fucking punch you.
I get. I gather Paul is kind of the enforcer.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah. Remember when Lorne tried to use Paul to scare Roy?
Yeah.
Paul's coming over to hit you, Roy. A family fuck.
I know. I know. Especially when they're drinking. The two
Mhm.
drunks are like yelling at each other, threatening this other man's gonna come over and beat you up.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So let's see. So then it gets into some demographic information of the Armstrong family. So I don't think we're going to go through that. All of it's changed at this point.
Mhm.
But the patriarch, Ralph Armstrong, um, of course, he's deceased at this time.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Although he's had several children outside of the ones that he had with Gwen.
Yeah, what was 16?
Something like that. Yeah, I had 17 in mind.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's a ton, and you know he didn't pay for any of them.
What idiot woman keeps having children? Well, Mama Gwen, clearly.
Yeah, but I don't think, clearly he had them with multiple women.
I know,
Yeah.
but I mean, who the
One
fuck?
woman didn't have 10.
No, I mean, we don't know. I don't
It
know
could
how
be.
many. Yeah, I guess it could be. Well, we know Mama Gwen had 6 with
Hmm.
this deadbeat.
Yeah,
Stop.
I
After the
know.
first 2, maybe stop.
Almost 7.
That's true.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, little
Yeah.
Michael. Oh, baby Michael.
So then we have his mother, Gwen. She at that time she was working for a company that provides transportation assistance to disabled persons. So she needed that van.
Of course. Wow. What a
I
shitbag.
know. So the oldest of the siblings is Lori. Then after her is Ralph Jr. And then following that is Big Daddy Roy.
Mhm.
And then Paul, then Richard, and then Lorne, little baby Lorne. So do you want to read the last sentence?
Yeah. The defendant has never been married and does not have any children.
Yes. And it also says the defendant indicated his family members are aware of the instant charges against him, and each of them remain supportive of him.
Yeah. I missed that line. And that's interesting. I wonder if he was just making that up at the
Yes.
time and he didn't actually know if they were supporting him or not and just assumed that they were because
Yeah.
he was in jail, or if he was just too ashamed. No, I think if he knew that, like, Richard, for example, thought he was a piece of shit for what he did and did not support him,
Hmm.
then he would use that for victim points. He would tell them, yeah, Richard doesn't support me, but it's only because he,
Oh,
whatever bullshit reasons
right.
he came up with.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. I know that Lorne looks at relationships or tries to present relationships that people have with him in a much better way than what they actually are.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So even when it comes to his probation officer, perfect example are his precious Julie, our precious Julie.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um
Or Allie.
or Allie. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Um he makes it sound like they are supportive of him. They don't think that he's a bad guy. They like him. They don't give him a hard time. But then when you see the reports, it's a much different situation, you
Mhm.
know? So when he's talking about these great sessions that he's having with Julie, and she's really hitting the nail on the head, and she's telling him, you know what, Lauren, you need to reparent yourself, you poor baby child.
Mhm.
Um, she's talking shit about him in her reports and saying this guy is fucked.
Mhm.
So but he really wants to present um, something that's much more pleasant than what it actually is. I do remember asking him if his family at some point talked to any of the kids in the family about
Mhm.
what had happened, and he said no. And I said, well, that's really irresponsible.
Yeah. Well, first of all, how would he know?
Exactly. Exactly. So I
He like.
think they must have, but he wants to believe that his family knows that he would
Mhm.
never hurt a child, that he would never do this except for some extenuating circumstance, like I was messed up at the time. My life was flipped upside down. I was going crazy, however he wants to describe it.
Mhm.
Um, but the reality is that they had to have looked at what he actually did and, put that in relation to their own family.
I would hope so.
I would hope so as well. And I think it probably did.
Mhm.
I think that this was probably a pretty big deal. I know that he called his brother when he was in jail, when it all happened. He didn't call his mom. So his brother had to tell his mom what
Mhm.
happened. And I can't even imagine that. It's so shocking, you know. I can
Yeah.
imagine how difficult the disbelief would be. How could this be happening? Type of a
Hmm.
thing. So even the relationship that they would have had with him wasn't great. I don't think any of the siblings really get along, in
Hmm.
particular. I mean, we don't know the older ones and how they relate to each other. Maybe they're closer. But who does Lorne hang out with on holidays?
This is mom. Yeah.
His mom.
He's
Yeah,
not
right.
invited.
Yeah, he's not invited. So I think that tells you
Hmm.
everything. He has other aunts and uncles. Obviously they're really old, but over the course of time, since he's been out of prison, um, he has cousins, he has, nieces, nephews. There's a bunch of them,
Yeah,
but
he doesn't have any of
he
them.
doesn't talk to any of them. No. And they're all in Maine. I mean, there's a big group in
Hmm.
Maine, and he has nothing to do with any of them. So that
Yeah.
tells you the reality of the situation. But I think that he really wants to believe that his family was behind him. And, this was really early on as well when this
Hmm.
report was made. So I think that this is his way of saying, my family knows that I did this, but this isn't me.
Right.
So I think that's the reason why he would say something like this. But of
Hmm.
course, I do understand your point too that he has used his family also as a way of making him a victim.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about his physical condition. So the very first thing that is said here, the defendant is 5'8". Not exactly. Not
Yeah. I
exactly.
think this might be a self-report.
Hmm. Weighing in at 176 pounds. He has blue eyes and
Bald
some,
hair.
yes, bald hair. I was about to say some brown hair.
I like to call it bald hair. Yeah.
I like that. Yes, so we're going to go with
Brown bald hair.
that. He didn't report having any tattoos or any significant scars or other noticeable markings. Oh my God, I just had a thought.
Hmm.
You know how when he was with Casey the first time
Yes,
and
I
he
do.
he wrote her name on his genitals or over his genitals?
Hmm.
What if he had done that?
Oh, that would have been amazing. He was going to, I remember he said he was going to, he told her father that he was going to get her name tattooed right above his penis. So I wonder if he meant, now I'm getting into the specifics of it,
Mhm.
but I wonder where exactly. So when he told Paul, he said he was going to get it like low down under his belly button,
Yeah.
like where a woman might get that. I feel like that is a very feminine place. Don't you think so?
Probably.
I mean, I might know a woman who has a tattoo there,
Heyo.
or did at
Yeah,
one point, but it's a girl spot to get a tattoo.
probably is.
I feel like it is. He's very feminine. He's that's a whole other discussion,
Yeah.
but he does many things that he thinks are sexy on a man. He's the
Yeah.
kind of guy who'd get it like his belly button pierced, I think. You think so? You think that was
Oh
sexy?
my God. If he was told to, he would do it.
Hmm.
He wouldn't think
Yeah.
of that on his own, I don't think. But
No, but if they told him it was sexy to have a
yeah.
belly button pierced, just like they told him it would be sexy for him to get a tattoo down there, like
Yeah.
a lady.
Yeah, and have somebody's name on it. Like
Hmm.
Casey's and with an arrow pointing down.
Someone who, let's remember, was the actress in The Sting that got him put in prison for 5 years.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, you have to remember that it was all worth it.
Yeah, yeah, being a registered sex offender for life
Yeah,
and
they
being
got
on
to meet.
probation for life and serving 5 years in prison
Uh-huh.
and being nationally known as a pedophile and having every humiliating, embarrassing thing you said to what you thought was a child broadcast to the world, to anyone who cares to see it,
Yeah.
it was all worth it because he, at the time, ended up with a crazy, drug addicted, sex addicted woman who puts mice in her mouth and doesn't know how to use the bathroom.
Right.
All worth it. Yeah. You say so, Lorne.
Yeah, I mean, well, to him and his weird, mushy brain, it would have been worth it if the entire thing with Casey would have been legit.
Hmm.
In his mind, it would have been worth it. He said as much. Because if they had never met during the sting, they never would have met.
Right.
So, see how romantic that is?
It's not just for Casey, though. It's for he has said that to every single one of the catfish, starting with Ramona,
Mhm.
because, and ending with Jamie, because that's how he got to know all of them,
Right.
was from his infamy from To Catch a Predator.
Right.
Everything happens for a reason. God did that to bring him to whatever girlfriend he's talking to at the time.
Okay. So, are you thinking that he will think that all of us being here and talking about this is worth it?
If he gets a girlfriend out of it, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, then he can thank us too.
You're welcome, Lauren.
You're welcome.
And he should thank Chris Hansen.
I think he should too.
He should personally thank Chris Hansen. Yeah.
So when he gets off of probation and he goes back on the internet, he may go around telling us some things in our comments. That may happen. Okay. But after that, he's going to cool down and he's going to thank everybody. He's going to go on a thank you tour.
As he should.
As he should. I agree. So everyone get ready for that. Let's see. But yeah, I was thinking, so back to his tattoo, his on his genitals. I was thinking how funny it would be if he had Kayla's name
Oh my
written in
God, I
marker.
know.
Because he did that shit in permanent marker.
Oh, with Casey's name?
Yeah,
Yeah. Of
yeah.
course he did.
So that would have been really funny if he went to jail. He had that.
That would
They'd be
be
searching
funny.
him and they're like, oh. Uh,
Thing.
I know, I know. The defendant reported he was in good health and had no history of any health problems. The defendant advised he broke his right arm while he was in the military and that his wrist was not reset correctly, a story that he continued for decades.
Mhm.
As a result, he reported his hand goes numb, and lately his arm had been going numb as well. The defendant indicated he has not requested any medical treatment for this condition.
And this was all those years ago, and he was still having problems with his hand when he was talking to Jamie,
Yeah,
and he never got it treated.
I know. I know. Isn't that crazy?
Hmm.
So then we're going to move on to his mental and emotional health. According to medical information provided by the Warren County Regional Jail, on February 17th, 2008, the defendant was seen by medical personnel. The medical notes indicate the defendant was crying and reported he didn't belong in jail. The defendant revealed he was lured into the situation because he was vulnerable.
Hmm.
He also declared that he wasn't in his right frame of mind and indicated he couldn't understand why he had acted the way he had. It was also noted the defendant advised he has had problems in the past with his family members taking advantage of him. Medical staff left a message for the defendant to be seen by a psychology nurse, and the defendant agreed to take Elavil in the interim. You know what's funny about this? I mean, not only the visual,
Mm-hmm.
But the fact number one, that this was February 17th, 2008. He's been in jail since October 18th. He has been crying and crying and crying and
Per month.
complaining for months. And it's so funny. Doesn't this sound like his well rehearsed tirade?
Yeah, absolutely. He hit every bullet point.
He did. The only thing he didn't mention was NBC this time. But
He
he's
might have.
telling this to the medical staff.
I know. That's what I was just thinking. It's not even like he was sitting with a mental health professional, like a psychologist or
Uh-huh.
psychiatrist. This is just a nurse.
Yeah.
He's like, so how's it going? Oh, I was fucking Lord, I don't belong here. I should get counseling to get off the internet, not jail
Oh
time.
my God. I know. They probably just had to take like routine blood pressure, temperature.
Mhm.
and all of
That's what I'm picturing.
that.
They're like taking his vitals, just right, routine stuff, asking him about any medical history. Does he take any medications or anything? And he's just weeping, telling him how his family took advantage of him.
I know. I know exactly. They write in the notes, we got a crier here.
Yep.
On February 18th, 2008, the defendant was seen by a psychology nurse. The defendant denied any thoughts of self harm, but admitted to feeling very emotional and upset. He also advised he had also learned a relative had passed away a few days earlier, that all of his family resides in Maine, and that he felt very lonesome. The defendant also expressed concern about his legal matters. At this time, his prescription for Elavil was discontinued, and the defendant was prescribed 20 milligrams of Prozac daily. The defendant reported he believes his medication is beneficial. No further mental health information was provided. So Lorne was upset, and it makes sense that he's going to be upset because the situation that he's in is horrible.
Yeah, I'd be upset if I destroyed my life and I was in jail and looking at 5 years in prison and sex offender registry for the rest of my life too.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at this time, though, in February, he didn't even know what was going to happen.
Hmm.
He had no idea. So I'm sure there was a lot of anxiety. It's situational, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And of course, because he is going to then compound everything and talk about how his family upsets him and somebody passed away. So he's really devastated about that. That everybody lives in Maine and he's down there in Kentucky, even though he left Maine to get away from all of them. But he's feeling very lonesome. So, yeah. So Lauren is a sad boy.
Yeah, so give him some Prozac.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Take some Prozac and shut your mouth, you crybaby.
Yeah. Shut your mouth and stop bothering the medical staff. They don't want to hear you.
They don't care about the mac and cheese story.
I
They don't.
know.
He told it too.
Of course he did. That thing was so well rehearsed by the time it
Hmm.
got to us. He'd been working that for years.
Yes.
So then let's talk about substance abuse. The defendant reported he began consuming alcoholic beverages when he was 20 years old. He reported he last drank alcohol a couple of days prior to his arrest on October 18th, 2007. The defendant described himself as someone who drank socially and indicated Budweiser Light was his drink of choice. The defendant indicated he typically drank beer on the weekends and would drink to the point of intoxication if he was upset. He expressed he believes he has a borderline problem with his consumption of alcohol and that he feels he would benefit from treatment for alcohol abuse. The defendant denied any history of blackouts due to alcohol consumption. He further denied any history of drug abuse. So we know that Lorne hasn't abused drugs. I believe that.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in drugs.
No. But he certainly believes in the Budweiser Light.
He does, yes.
So it's been a problem for him for a very, very long time. So
Hmm.
I don't think that he just drinks to intoxication if he's upset. He drinks to intoxication every time he drinks.
Yeah, that's the point of drinking.
Yeah, that's the
It's to
entire
get
point.
There's
Yeah,
another victim thing there. I only get drunk when I'm upset, and I'm only upset when other people upset me.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
basically, other people make me get drunk.
Hmm. Yeah. Because I think I remember him saying that he doesn't like the taste of beer.
He did say that. Yeah.
Which is so weird, especially after all of this time of drinking it regularly and at such great quantities that he doesn't like it.
And it's the only thing he will drink. He'll only drink Bud Light.
Yeah,
If you don't like it, why not find something that you do like the taste of?
right.
Right. He doesn't drink to enjoy the beverage. He drinks to get hammered.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, he's definitely not the type that's just going to have a beer after work or after dinner, type of a thing.
No, he's
Um,
gonna have six.
he's gonna have whatever he can get.
Right.
Yeah. Then we have education and vocational skills. And James, would you like to let the people know about Lauren's education?
Sure, it's extensive. Yes. According to the guidance secretary at Piscataquis Community High School in Gidford, Maine, the defendant enrolled as a freshman in August 1985. Oh, that's the month and year I was born. That's funny. He graduated from high school on June 9th, 1989. A transcript provided by the school noted the defendant was ranked 87 in his class of 87 students and that he had a final grade point average of 75.83 on a scale of 100. What
Round
is a
of applause.
75? Is that a D?
No, it's a C.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So it's not, he didn't fail or he
Okay.
didn't get a D anyway. No, he got a C. And yeah, I know I remember the story of him quitting school. And he says things in such a strange way that
Mhm.
it makes it not make sense. Um I remember people used to quit school, when I was in school, and they would quit for, I guess, a number of reasons. Either they didn't like it, or they weren't doing well, or they wanted to go off and start working, or whatever. But Lorne said that he quit because he didn't like anybody there. So does that make sense? And
He quit school.
we're not even talking about a situation where he said, I was bullied relentlessly.
Hmm.
Like,
Right.
I
That would
couldn't
make
go.
sense.
It would make sense, yeah. But yeah, he said he didn't like anybody.
Which really means he didn't have any friends.
He didn't have any friends, no. No, he didn't. So then after he quit though, his mom and the guidance counselor talked him into going back. And
Hmm.
that's when he went back and finished. But that must have been a pretty uphill battle as well, depending on how much he missed. And, you've got to do the work, right? So,
Hmm.
but I've heard people say as well that they must have just kind of fluffed the grade to get him out of there and also
Yeah.
not completely destroy the school's record, because that's important to them too
Hmm.
with the
They,
testing and everything. So, yeah.
yeah, they do that
Hmm.
just to get seniors out of there.
Yeah. So he squeaked by as 87. And of course, that is the famous 87 that
Hmm.
became his nickname. Which
And what's
he,
also funny about that is Lorne didn't even, he never read this report.
uh huh.
Like many of the reports he gets about himself. So he didn't even know that he was 87 out of 87.
Didn't he start calling Jamie that? Or did he
He
at
did.
least say it one time?
No, he did. Yeah. She would call him 87 and he would hit her back with 87. So he's insulting himself if it's an insult to be 87.
Yeah. Yeah. And was she being particularly stupid?
No, she was
No.
calling him stupid and he
Right.
is stupid. So he Didn't know what to come back with.
So now we, okay, we're going to get past the whole high school thing. It doesn't sound like it was great.
Mm,
Okay. So
yeah.
let's talk about his skills and talents. So, Amanda James, tell us something good about Lorne.
When asked about his skills and talents, the defendant reported he is a talented singer and that he had relocated to Nashville, Tennessee to pursue a singing career. He added he enjoyed writing children's stories.
Hmm.
The defendant revealed he is presently writing a book about one of his current cellmates who was in the military and did a tour of duty in Iraq. The defendant advised it matters to him what other people think of him and that he feels honesty is very important. These are his skills.
Yeah.
Okay. He he reported he is good with his hands and that
Hmm.
he has worked as a carpenter. The defendant revealed he owned and operated his own septic cleaning service and has worked in construction. He further described himself as thoughtful. Okay, his skills include singing, writing children's stories,
Yeah.
writing about a cellmate,
Yeah.
and being honest.
Yeah.
And his skill is caring about what other people think of him. And he's good with his hands. Okay.
Yeah.
And he is thoughtful. That is a skill. His
Well, it is
thoughtful.
it is because that obviously involves staring at the wall. Right?
He is good at that. My thoughts. My thoughts are on the wall.
Yeah.
He's so talentless and worthless that when they're asked about his skill, I mean, first of all, they're talking about vocational skills when they ask about skills.
Yeah.
They're not, they're not really interested in anything else. And I guess singing could be included in that because he was saying that he was trying to pursue singing as a career and not just a hobby. So, okay, I'll give him a pass for that. But he's worked a few construction jobs, he's cleaned out some septic tanks, and he's thoughtful.
And he feels honesty is very important.
That is a skill to feel that honesty is important.
Again, that's such a strange thing to highlight.
He misunderstands questions,
Yeah.
and we saw that a lot in his um, sex offender treatment
Oh,
assignments.
yes.
He would really misunderstand the question and give answers that really don't apply.
Uh-huh.
This is another good example of that.
Yeah, it really is.
It's funny that they put it down though.
Yeah. When Lauren speaks, you put that shit down.
Right.
Right. And then, okay, so we talked about his talents and stuff. Let's talk about how he put those talents to use. So his employment record. This is going to be an interesting one.
Mhm.
The defendant was arrested on state-related charge on October 18th, 2007. He has remained in either state or federal custody since that time. He is presently in federal custody pursuant to a writ. So he can't really work, is basically what they're saying here. So, according to the office manager at Trades Unlimited, located in Nashville, Tennessee, the defendant was employed as a carpenter from October 15th through the 23rd. So that would be when he was officially terminated.
Mhm.
So he was basically a no call, no show because he was in jail. And then they give you a couple of days. I think it could be 3 days or so.
Right.
Um,
So he was
mhm.
employed from the 15th to the 18th when he
Yeah.
was arrested.
Yes. Did he went to work on the 18th, right? Because he was waiting
Yeah.
till it was 4 o'clock. Oh, thank
Mhm.
God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying thank God too. Um, so yeah, so he worked 3 days. He was compensated at $12 an hour in this position. He could have made more if he wanted to. You know how
He
he
could have.
always would add that to every time he talked about a job?
Mm-hmm.
He would say the amount and then say, I can make more if I want to.
Why wouldn't you want to?
I don't know.
Why is that? Okay.
They noted that the defendant worked for 1 week before disappearing. It was their understanding the defendant voluntarily quit without providing notice. They indicated the defendant was not eligible for rehire and that they would not consider reemploying him.
Oh, well, their law, because he's good with his hands.
Definitely. And he was going to get out at some point, you know.
Yeah.
So that is definitely their loss. But could you imagine getting that call? And they're like,
Yeah.
do you know Lorne Armstrong? And they're like, oh, yeah, he was here for like a couple of days and then he
Yeah,
disappeared.
we
They're like,
wondered what happened to that
oh,
guy.
I'm calling from the Warren County Jail. He's here. Did you ever hear of To Catch a Predator?
They did after that.
They sure
I bet
did.
they all went and watched after that.
Oh, yes, definitely.
They're like, look, it's Lorne. He's talking about building the gym for the church. Look at that weird guy on the low.
Yes. Yeah, the weird guy who tried to operate the lull but sucked at it.
Huh? Remember that guy who was talking about his girlfriend all the time? He
Yeah.
never mentioned she was 13.
I know. The defendant reported he was employed by Century 2 located in Nashville, Tennessee from September to October. He advised this business solicited donations for the fire department. The defendant indicated he held a full-time position and was paid $11 an hour. He explained he left this employment because he didn't enjoy having a quote-unquote desk job. According to a representative with this company, the defendant was never an employee for their business.
They're not claiming Lorne.
No.
They said no, he's lying.
Yeah, they said who? No.
We don't know that guy.
We don't know here. He does not go here. um, what I'm thinking is it was some type of a temp agency.
Hmm.
That's what I'm thinking it was. That actually was his employer, so they wouldn't have really known who he was. But it
Yeah.
is really funny how he's saying he didn't enjoy having a desk job.
Hmm. Because he's good with his hands.
That is one of his talents. He didn't say that one of his talents was soliciting donations for the fire department.
No, but it is a talent of his to talk on the phone for
Mm,
endless hours of his life. So you think he would have loved it?
I know. That must have been such a horrible job.
I know. It really,
Uh-huh.
even the most patient, I think I'm a pretty patient person. But if somebody calls me asking for money, I'm hanging up on them. And that's on a nice day.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, especially now because those types of calls don't even go through to your phone. I know for me, if I don't have you in my contact, it's not even
You
gonna
don't get
ring.
answers.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, back then, if people would have, regular landlines,
Hmm.
and so you're gonna call them during dinner and ask them if if they can spend money. No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. Um, I bet you he didn't sell a single ticket.
I think he said he didn't.
Oh, did he? Okay, I don't remember
I
that.
I mean I could be remembering wrong, but or maybe he said he sold very few,
Hmm.
but yeah, he didn't sell shit.
No, he didn't. He was horrible at that. So, yeah, he left the job because he was fired. Basically, I'm sure that's what it was.
He was fired, remember?
Hmm.
Oh no, he quit. He said he quit because they tried telling him who he could talk to.
Right, right. He was probably disruptive.
Hmm.
They're like, we didn't hire you so that you could hang out and talk to your friends. We hired you to sell shit.
Yeah, go sit back down at your desk, Lauren, get that
Yeah,
headset on
exactly.
and start calling people.
Maybe that's where he fell in love with the headset.
Yeah, maybe he's like, wow, this is convenient.
This is
This is
nice.
handy.
Yeah, exactly. In 2001, the defendant advised he opened A1 Septic Service, a business he owned and which was located in Maine. Now I know there's a lot of controversy with that.
Mhm.
Questions of did he ever own anything? Was that really his brother's business? Did the business ever exist anyway?
Mhm.
Don't know.
I
He
don't either.
he well, it says here he indicated this remains a legitimate business. However, he put it on hold when he relocated to Nashville, Tennessee to pursue his singing career. You don't put a business on hold.
No, and he he said A1 Septic was a legitimate business, but he only stopped when he went to Nashville. He wasn't doing septic stuff before he went to Nashville. He was destroying Betty's he was throwing two by fours around Betty's yard.
He was, yes.
Oh, you know what though? She found Lorne in the phone book
From
because
A1.
because she needed someone to hook up her washing machine or something.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe he was. Do you call a septic cleaning service to hook up a washing machine?
It could have been something where, I mean, back in the day, they had the yellow pages. And
Mhm.
so if she was looking, maybe he was under a couple of different categories, maybe plumbing, something like that. And then if he, depending on what type of an ad he had in there, it could have said handyman, um, you know, plumbing,
Well,
that type of thing. And
I hope
because,
he was.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hope he wasn't advertising for plumbing. You need actual
No,
education
that
to
is
do
true.
plumbing
No,
stuff.
absolutely, absolutely. But I'm thinking more along the lines of he would,
Handyman.
yeah, he would have had it worded somehow that
Mhm.
it would have had her call because no, you wouldn't call a septic service to hook up a laundry machine
Yeah,
or a washing machine. So yeah. The defendant reported that he can return to this business and reestablish clients once he's released from custody. And that is true because he has said that if he gets the right jobs, in 2 weeks' time, he can make all of your bank accounts look like shit.
that's true. And I mean, he could reestablish it at any time. Still, he was going to. He made business cards. He just renamed it
Boo Bear.
Boo and Bear. He had no equipment.
No.
I don't even think he had a working vehicle. Or like a legal vehicle that he could drive.
Right.
But he had those business cards. You get the jobs first,
hmm
and then you worry about the equipment that you need to complete the job.
Exactly. Yeah. And certainly when we're talking about septic service, we're not talking about a company that's going to install anything.
No.
He doesn't have any of that type of equipment. He's going to have
Mhm.
his car or whoever's family member's car that he's driving and a couple of tools, from the Home Depot. That's what he's going to do. Maybe there's a clog somewhere, or
Mhm.
whatever, but he's not pumping the um, septic tanks. He's not installing anything. He's not going to be doing repairs. He's going to be doing just some basic stuff.
So basically, you should just call a company who can do the things that you need them to do.
Yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is hire somebody who's qualified.
Yeah.
You know,
So
that's what it comes down to.
I know it is a very it's a valuable job. We need plumbers. We need people who clean septic
Oh,
tanks.
sure.
Not a glamorous job,
hmm
but they are very necessary.
hmm
But how fitting is it that Lauren's chosen profession is dealing with shit tanks?
I know. I know. I think, well, clearly he thought about the money involved. Um, and that's really all that it was.
Well, I think he just by chance worked for a septic company in
Mhm.
Washington,
Yeah.
right? And he just kind of got the idea from there. He's like, "Oh, I've worked for them. I'm basically, a professional or an expert. I know everything about septic tanks now, so I'm going to start my own company."
Yeah. Yeah. And then he kind of did, maybe allegedly did that.
He made a lot of money.
He
And
sure
his
did.
siblings took it all.
They did. They
You know,
did.
those 3 times he gave them money, that was all his money.
I
They
know.
bankrupted him over a total of like $1,200.
I know.
Ruined his life.
Oh, and here's where they talk about working for a septic service. So the defendant revealed he was employed by A Plus Septic Service located in Lacey, Washington from 99 to 2001. He reported he held a full-time position and was responsible for driving the trucks, running the pump, and doing repairs. The defendant advised he earned $11.50 an hour in this position plus commission. He indicated he left this employment to return to his home state of Maine, where he opened a similar business. And the reason why he moved was to be closer to Amanda James. I mean, sort of. Yeah.
Right, kind of.
So, yeah. For approximately 6 months in 1999, the defendant advised he was employed by Schneider National, located in Portland, Oregon. He reported he was hired as an over the road truck driver and was compensated at a rate of 22 cents a mile. The defendant revealed he left this employment because he didn't enjoy the lifestyle. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, because he's a truck driver. He just doesn't enjoy anything.
He
He doesn't
doesn't.
enjoy a desk job. He doesn't enjoy driving truck.
Well, that's what he says anyway.
He only enjoys singing.
Yeah, he does enjoy singing.
Can't we just let the man sing and give him millions of dollars for it?
Yeah. I mean, somebody who can't remember words, who
Well,
can't
they
hit
were
notes.
1980s song.
That is true.
You know,
That is true.
the decade that he grew up in.
Remember when somebody from high school walked up to him in Walmart and asked him if he was still singing?
I do, because that was a real important moment in his life. Everybody knew, hey, remember Lorne Armstrong? The singer. Yeah, that really good singer. That's what everybody knew him as.
Yes, exactly. Wasn't that guy's name Jackass? Or was that somebody different?
I think that was somebody different. That was somebody Lorne was talking to about getting a job when he was
Oh,
Jamie was really pestering him to get a job,
yeah.
and Lorne would lie about the job search. And he said he saw a guy in Walmart. His name was Jack, and he talked to him about getting a job.
Right. That's so funny.
Jackass.
Right. Um, and then, according to the payroll supervisor with the Irving Tanning Company, this is the funniest one. Located in Heartland, Maine, the defendant was employed as a laborer. He earned $8.50 an hour. They noted he was initially employed from February 5th to May 17th, 1994, at which time he resigned. The defendant was again hired on October 19th, 1998, and worked through August 19th, 1999, at which time he resigned. On July 24th, 2002, the defendant was rehired. He worked through August 22nd, 2002, at which time he resigned his position. The defendant was hired on January 19th, 2005, and resigned that same date. They noted they would not consider reemploying the defendant.
Why not?
They didn't want their hearts broken again.
Yeah, they missed him every time he left.
Every time he left. Yeah.
He was a really good tanner.
He was. He was a really good tanner. But yeah, they didn't like seeing him walk out the door.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. Ugh. Then we're going to move on to the defendant added he sold Kirby vacuums in Olympia, Washington for 2 to 3 months. However, he was not able to recall the name of any business he sold for or how much he earned in this endeavor. The defendant indicated he left this line of work to go to Schneider National because he was broke.
Oh, so he wasn't a good vacuum salesman?
He was not, and it doesn't say he didn't enjoy it and anything like that. So he must have been going door to door, or at
Yeah,
least he was supposed to.
yeah. Talk about a hard job.
Yes. Ugh, I know. And then that's also the famous Kirby vacuum that his mother had.
So he stole a Kirby vacuum
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
gave it to his mother.
Yes. Because I
And then,
go ahead.
sorry, so he stole the Kirby vacuum, gave it to his mother. She sold it to Tony and Wendy
Uh-huh.
for $50.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did pay her for it, but Lorne um, decided that they really owed him and his mother a huge debt of gratitude for selling them the free vacuum cleaner that he stole.
And then also put on his bankruptcy? No.
Oh yeah.
Was it?
No,
Oh, Kirby,
I
I
heard
think, was
something.
on the bankruptcy.
Yes, I heard something about that. I haven't
Mhm.
seen it, but I heard something about that.
Yeah.
So,
So nobody paid for that.
right.
Yeah.
Except for Tony and Wendy, who paid $50 for it.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe that's where he gets the number because he says it was a $1,200 vacuum cleaner.
Hmm.
Maybe that's what he said on his bankruptcy, or that's what it said on the bankruptcy thing.
It could have. I know that people have talked about these vacuums before, and they are very expensive.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Then we have the defendant advised he enlisted in the U.S. Air Force in April 1991. He advised he was either honorably or other than honorably discharged in January 1993. The defendant reported his highest rank was that of E3. He explained he was discharged because he failed a test and was told to either go to a different career field or leave the service. The defendant indicated he was trained as a refueler or a truck mechanic. He added that he was also part of the decontamination team. The defendant, which is kind of weird because he's so contaminated.
Yeah.
The defendant reported he received a certification in basic training, diesel mechanics, and technical school. He added he was also a coach for a children's mini mite basketball team and that he received an award for this voluntary activity.
Don't add that.
But
That does not, that, don't do that. Don't mention anything of being around children. I mean, he should, of course, because they need to know just how involved he is with kids. But if he had any self-awareness, he would not be bragging about being a coach
I
for little
know.
kids.
I know. But he's loved kids ever since he was a kid.
Yeah, can't forget that.
No. A request for military records was sent to the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis, Missouri. They responded and indicated the defendant's record had not yet been received by their center and referred the request to the Department of the Air Force Headquarters Air Force Personnel Center located at Randolph Air Force Base in Texas. No further information regarding the defendant's military career has been provided to date. So we do know, though, that he was honorably discharged.
Hmm.
So, but of course, didn't get any benefits because he wasn't there long enough.
Yeah,
So that is good.
it is. Yes.
Yeah. So, would you like to talk about his financial condition, ability to pay?
Yeah, I would. The defendant submitted a net worth and cash flow statement to this officer dated April 4th, 2008. He advised he possibly had $10 to $20 in a bank account at a federal credit union in Maine, but he was not sure. The defendant reported the following debts: $1,300 to Central Power Company located in Maine, $600 to TDS Telecom in Maine, approximately $279 to Snowman's Oil Company located in Maine, $600 for his MasterCard account, as well as over $4,000 in jail fees to the Warren County Regional Jail. He explained he must pay $25 a day while in jail for jail fees. The defendant added he believes he has outstanding debts related to his apartment and utilities he had in Nashville, Tennessee prior to his arrest, but was unsure of the amount of debt, if any, related to those expenses. According to a credit report obtained from TransUnion Credit Services, it appears the defendant paid a civil judgment in the amount of $953 in October 2001 to Capital Kirby. The credit report reflected the defendant had 8 accounts in collection status that had a cumulative outstanding debt of $12,314. So,
So,
so the central main power thing, I can
uh-huh.
tell you, that's the electric company. What people sometimes do, and I think now Lorne's power bill is in his mother's name
Yes.
because this is a common thing. People will run up the power bill so high because in Maine, it's like a death sentence to have your electricity shut off in the winter.
Hmm.
So they will not do it. They will keep, you don't have to pay your bill all winter long. However, come like June, they're going to shut that shit down.
Uh-huh.
And by that time, it's usually about $1,300. Like
Sure.
that makes sense. Um, and then, of course, instead of paying that off, you can make payment plans. People need electricity,
Yeah.
and that power company has a monopoly in Maine. So if you don't go through CMP, then you don't have power, basically. So,
Mhm.
like, they will accept payment plans. You can give them hardly anything a month, and they'll keep your power on.
Yeah.
But Lorne, instead of paying anything, he just puts it in his mother's name. Just make,
Yes.
and a lot of people do that, or a lot of people like Lorne do that.
Yeah, because if he wanted to have something in his name, he'd have to pay a deposit probably,
Yes. Yep.
and that would be impossible for him to do.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Or
there's
at least
that.
make a payment plan and stick to it.
Hmm.
But yeah, they'll usually ask for a certain amount of that money
Yeah.
that you owe down to reestablish your account.
And then there's the $600 to TDS Telecom, which would be a telephone company.
Right.
So for his landline, he probably had long distance.
Oh yeah, because I was gonna say, how do you rack up a $600 landline bill? That's like
Yeah.
$8 a month.
Yeah, I imagine it was probably pretty cheap. But yeah, him doing his long distance because back then, I mean, he was on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So he was definitely running up those long distance charges. I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
And then approximately 279 for Snowman's Oil Company. Okay. $600 to his MasterCard account. And then talking about the jails fees. Yeah. I mean, I have heard that there's jails fees that will just add up every single time that you're there.
Hmm.
How they're paid or if they're ever paid, I don't know. Because I think most people are just considered indigent at that point. They're not working.
Right. You're in
So,
jail.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, but it is interesting, of course, with Kirby appearing with the judgment for
Yes.
almost $1,000. Yeah, that is really funny.
Exaggerating about this $1,200 vacuum cleaner. It wasn't even 1,000.
Yeah, yeah, that is possible. I mean, that would be the civil judgment amount as well. So,
Oh yeah.
who knows if maybe they had, not that they would have come to an agreement. I bet you that it was just a default judgment,
Mm-hmm.
that he never appeared. There was never any type of negotiating. That's likely just, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, he has all of these collection accounts for $12,000. Yeah.
That's funny. It's
Yeah.
funny that his understanding of his debt is the number's a little bit off from the real number.
Yeah. Right. Right. Exactly. And for him to have 10 to $20.
No, that really made me laugh. I think I got $10 or $20. I'm not sure. He was counting on because he needed money to make phone calls. In
Hmm.
jail, you need money too for commissary or whatever.
Yeah. Or if you're getting extorted.
Or if you're getting it, yeah, but that's coming out of Mama Gwen's pocket.
True.
So,
True. True. But yeah, and it is interesting as well that his financial status at that time isn't any different than what it currently is.
right. No, you're right.
Even after a bankruptcy, which would be a life-changing. I mean, he's had a couple of life-changing financial situations come up. First is
Mhm.
bankruptcy, which for Chapter 7 wipes out everything.
Yes.
With exception to a couple of things, but for him, for consumer debt, it's just going to wipe it all out. Um,
Mhm.
So for that, I mean, and that does create such a big hit, to somebody, to move forward from there. It's not like, oh, I declare bankruptcy, just like on The Office with Michael
Right.
Scott. And then you're like, okay, well, cool. We just wiped everything out and we're going to move on. There's a big hit. I think for chapter 7, it stays on your credit for 10 years.
Hmm.
So for him to want to get an apartment or open up a credit card, buy a car, any of those things are going to be a lot more difficult to do. And so you would imagine that somebody in that position would then just be like, okay, I fucked up. I'm going to do good now. I don't want to ever be in that position again. So now I'm going to be responsible, and I'm only going to use credit, responsibly. Um, and he hasn't done that. He just created another situation that he's not going to be able to get out of.
No, I think he maxed out a credit card to pay for a lawyer
Hmm.
to get him out of the sex offender treatment class,
Hmm.
and then refused to take any of that lawyer's advice.
Yes. Yeah, he did.
But it's hard to understand how my dog is tapping all around. Um,
She's dancing.
it's hard to understand how he's so broke when he has such a small amount of bills comparatively. He owns the trailer,
Yeah.
he owns the land, he doesn't have to make payment, he doesn't have a mortgage payment, he doesn't have rent payment.
Yeah.
Um, he just has to pay the taxes every year, and
Which
he
are
can't even
very
do that.
low.
They are, yes, and he can't even do that.
Yeah.
His bills are, I would think, quite low when he doesn't have a $600 car payment every month, which he doesn't. He at this
True.
point, but he still is always broke,
Yeah. I mean,
grounding for change for cigarettes.
right. Or taking from his mother. Yeah. It's pretty incredible what he spends his money on. We have the bankruptcy situation, but then we also have the COVID situation where he received a ton of
Mhm.
money.
Mhm.
And so then what happened with that? It's all gone. He bought a ton of shit at yard sales and things of that nature,
Auctions, yeah.
auctions, all that kind of stuff. It's very, I don't know, very stressful.
That's funny. He spent all that money on other people's unwanted items
Yes, he did.
and thought he was going to make money off them,
Hmm.
like the Beanie Babies.
Right. Yep, just like the Beanie Babies. Those were worthless. I know that if you're really dedicated to going to yard sales or auctions, you can find stuff that is going to be worth something, you know. But I think you really have to know what you're doing, number one, and then also number two, be really, really lucky that you find something that someone's not aware of what it's worth. So they're selling it for like $1. And then you go and have it appraised and it's really $50,000 because, it would belong to somebody, or an ancient artifact that just looks like an ugly, pot.
Well,
Um,
you also,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say you have to actually do the research
Hmm.
and know the market and know these items and their worth, because you can Google just about anything and find somebody trying to sell it for a ridiculous price.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that's what the item is worth,
Sure. Yeah,
which is what
absolutely.
Lorne doesn't understand.
Right.
He saw Beanie Babies being listed for $25,000
Hmm.
on eBay, and he's like, "Holy shit, this Beanie Baby's worth $25,000."
Yeah.
Is it though? Because nobody's buying it.
Right. And the thing is, too, is that anything that's going to be collectible has to be in perfect condition,
Mm-hmm.
like perfect with the tag in perfect condition, all of that. Or maybe it has a particular defect to it that makes it worth something.
Mm-hmm.
But he also had a magazine from like the early 2000s showing a
Hmm.
list of prices. And it was like a trading magazine. That's invalid now.
Yes.
You know? So
Yeah.
so him thinking like, "Oh, I found I just specifically remember Izzy was like a lizard or something like that." And he
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I've got, 5 of these and that it was going to make a money." And it's like, no, Lauren, they're in a plastic bag. They're probably sitting in somebody's basement. They're
Hmm.
not in mint condition, So for somebody who's a true collector, uh, that's not going to fly at all,
Right.
you know?
And if you've got 5 of them, how rare are they?
Yeah,
Probably
exactly.
not.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Common sense stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as far as this case was concerned, there's no known restitution. It doesn't appear the defendant has the financial resources to pay a fine within the advisory guideline range. So, no $250,000 fine.
Unfortunately, no, he might have $20.
Yeah. Can you make payments? Yeah. So now that we've gone through all of that, all of who is Lorne, his background information, they give some sentencing options. And of course, it has in parentheses guideline provisions are advisory. So for custody, the statutory provisions, the maximum sentence that may be imposed is not more than 30 years imprisonment. Guideline provisions based on the criminal history category 1 and the total offense level of 23, the guideline range of imprisonment is 46 to 57 months, which is in the zone D of the sentencing table. The minimum term shall be satisfied by the sentence of imprisonment. So, impact of plea agreement. The defendant pleaded guilty to a 1 count indictment. All relevant conduct was taken into consideration in calculating the advisory sentencing guidelines. There's no indication the plea agreement has compromised the calculation of the guidelines. There is a Rule 11C 1C agreement in this case. Pursuant to Section 6B1.2C, the court may accept the agreement if the court is satisfied either that the agreement upon sentence is within the applicable guideline range or the agreed upon sentence departs from the applicable guideline range for justifiable reasons. The parties have agreed a 60-month sentence is the appropriate disposition in this case. If the court accepts the Rule 11C 1C plea agreement pursuant to Section 6B1.2C, the sentence will be a departure from the guideline range. And then they're going to talk about supervised release. So, statutory provisions as a result of the offense and conviction, the term of supervised release is not less than 5 years or up to life. Guideline provisions as the offense of conviction is a sex offense, the term of supervised release is 2 years up to life. Furthermore, a policy statement contained in Section 5D1.2b instructs that if the instant offense of conviction is a sex offense, the statutory maximum term of supervised release is recommended for defendants sentenced under this guideline. So, then with probation statutory provisions, the defendant is not eligible for probation because the offense of conviction is a Class B felony. Guideline provisions, the defendant is not eligible for probation because the offense is a conviction is a Class B felony. So Lorne was going to serve time no matter what.
Right. Okay. So he wasn't eligible just to serve
Uh-uh.
probation.
Nope. Fines. We have that maximum fine of $250,000. A special assessment of $100 is mandatory. He did pay that, by the way.
Hmm.
Then the guideline provision, the fine range of 10,000 to 100,000. I would like to impose the maximum fine of $250,000. I think that he should pay that to us.
Yeah, we'll never see it. I mean, poor Betty. I think she got what, $80 for 30,000.
I think he got maybe 300 to 400 total.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
it was around 400,
Yeah.
but still.
Well, after she gets paid, then he can start paying us,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree.
Yeah. So then they just talk about how they came up with the fine. They did a little math here. They talked about, as of a particular date, he had a bill of 2,076.83 for imprisonment. And then there's other fees that go into that. But
Mhm.
yeah, we'll never see that anyway.
No.
Restitution, they're just basically saying in here, um, there is no restitution basically in that. And then it's pretty much over, I think. Is that it?
Yeah.
That is it. So, yeah, so that's what the judge had to consider. That was going to help him make his ruling.
Okay. So what did we learn? We learned um, that he has a terrible employment record.
Horrific.
His criminal record isn't as bad as some, but
No.
it's not as simple as I only had an OUI, like he said.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple other um, charges. There were a couple other run-ins with the law. Um, we learned that he's skilled at thinking honesty is important, and his father figure left his mother for his sister-in-law.
Yes, and he's very upset about that because that meant his father left him. He's
Yes,
the only
and he
dad
has a
he had.
problem with, right, he does have a problem with people leaving him.
Yeah.
Um, so that is what the judge had to consider when sentencing him.
And also,
And
he's a
yeah,
talented singer.
he is a talented singer. He's also very, very bad with money.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. He's kind of just a worthless human being. I mean, however, I will say if he was successful in suing NBC, like he
Yeah.
goes on to try to do, he wouldn't have, but he would have been able to pay that $250,000 fine
Mm.
because he would have gotten 80 million.
Yes.
I still don't think he'd pay his debt.
He
He would
wouldn't have
have had
paid
80
it.
million dollars.
No, he definitely would have spent it in a ridiculous way. And that would be pretty entertaining to see.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of people were and are upset that he received so much money from COVID. And I
Yeah.
completely understand. It sucks that he received anything. He certainly didn't deserve it. And there's a lot of people who continue to work full time that didn't make the money that he did,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so the silver lining on that though is that all that money's gone. He did
He lost
shit with it. Yeah, he lost it.
it.
So I think that's really funny.
Including he started paying for a $4,000 ring for a woman that he'd never met before
Hmm.
in his life. And he, had to stop making payments at a loss. He lost money on this ridiculous diamond ring.
I know. I know. And also in the interim, he bought junk jewelry and gems, right? Didn't he buy gems? That was in
He did.
his home shopping network video that
Yes.
Lord made.
Mhm.
But yeah, he bought a lot of ridiculous things. And after all of that money, his house looks worse than ever.
Sure does.
He's not doing anything. He lost all of that money
Mhm.
on junk. It was all a waste.
Yeah, he never paid his mother back the
No,
$5,000 he owes her
no.
out of that money. He didn't buy himself a decent vehicle with the
Mhm.
money,
Mhm.
just a reliable, legal vehicle.
Yeah.
Nothing. Because Lauren is the kind of guy who, instead of buying a reliable vehicle or paying to get his vehicle repaired, so it's legal to drive, he's gonna make payments on a $4,000 ring for a robot that he's never met. Because he's just that kind of guy.
Well, it was a robot voice, but he wasn't buying the ring for a robot.
Well, I mean, if you're speaking to someone with a robot voice, aren't you going to think it's a robot? Just common sense.
Hmm. I mean, it could have been, but he did have those photos of a beautiful woman.
Okay, so a robot voiced porn star. Then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
regardless, a robot voiced woman that he had never met
True. Yeah, I know. I
and who he had doubts about whether or not she was real.
know.
I'm not sure if you're real. Let me buy you a $4,000 ring.
Mhm. I think, there's a part of me that thinks that, yeah, in the most ideal situation, if Jamie was real, or if whoever was pretending to be Jamie turned out to be a real person that went up and saw him and they got into a relationship, that maybe he would have given that ring to her. But there's a part of me that thinks that he did not buy that ring for Jamie. I think that he bought it as an investment. Now, he lost the money
Hmm.
because he didn't fulfill the obligation. But I think that it wasn't it wasn't just for Jamie. I think it was something that he was going because he started to get into that with
Hmm.
the buying the jewelry thing. And even didn't he tell Jamie that he wanted to start buying like a necklace and stuff like that to
Yeah,
hold so that she would be taken care of when he was dead?
yeah, because jewelry just increases in value.
Yeah,
See, and this is what I mean when I say in order to make money off doing stuff like that, you have to know what you're doing.
you do. Yeah.
Because buying a, especially a diamond engagement ring to resell is the worst way to you lose tons of money.
Hmm.
So whereas he's paying almost $4,000 for that ring, that's not what it's actually worth.
Hmm.
It's worth, especially diamonds are worth so little when it comes
Hmm.
to reselling. Ask anybody who sold their wedding ring or their engagement ring.
Right.
It'll make you cry how
Yeah.
much you would get for them. Like the
Yeah.
diamonds, unless they're perfect, super perfect, high quality, in which case you're going to spend tons and tons of money. That's not a way to make money. That's a way to lose huge money.
Hmm.
So I mean, you're probably right because he's an idiot and that's what he thinks. If I spend a lot of money on this jewelry, that means it's worth a lot of money. It's not.
Yes. That's exactly what he thinks. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's something to consider,
Yeah.
you know.
I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, sure, in the most ideal situation, she's going to come up there.
Right.
And certainly that was something that he used to throw in her face whenever he
Hmm.
had the chance to. But yeah, but it wasn't like he would have been at a loss, even though, yes, the way that you explain it, yes, he would have been at a loss, but in his mind, he's thinking diamond.
Right.
That's going to
It's
be your
money in the
money.
bank.
It's money in the
Yeah.
bank, just like his land. To him, he feels like he has $60,000 in his pocket because he
Hmm.
paid 60,000 total, for the land. And
Hmm.
and that deed is burning a hole. He's so ready to borrow against it.
Yeah.
He really is. So anyway, so next time, what we're gonna go over, I think, is well, hopefully there's another response
Yeah.
from the current debater.
I hope so.
Yeah, Yeah, that should be coming up any day, actually, with it being the 13th today.
Oh, what day was it due or expected?
I thought it was the 16th or the 18th.
Yeah, I think it was the 18th.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be
Is it
coming
the
up.
18th or by the 18th?
It doesn't have to just be on the 18th. Yeah. So I would say by the 18th.
By the 18th. Okay.
Yeah. So just like with the government responded like a day early. So
Mm-hmm.
refresh that pacer, everybody.
Yeah.
We're waiting on that. But yeah, so if there is something there, then we'll be talking about that. But if not, we'll be patient and we will just continue to see what happened at his hearing for sentencing for this particular crime. The sentence that he's trying to fight right now in
Mhm.
2024.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll take a look, I think, at the transcript of his sentence, at least a little bit to show how that was addressed in court, what the questions were when the judge was asking them of Lorne, what his responses were.
Mhm.
Because clearly, he was sentenced, so and it was according to the plea agreement. Um, but I think just to hammer home really that they did what they were supposed to do. The
Mhm.
judge didn't just say, okay, you agree to that, cool. Like they're going to ask very specific questions to make
Mhm.
sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do according to the law. And we saw that his lawyer did exactly what he was supposed to do as well. He explained everything to Lorne. We saw that in his letter. We saw that the plea agreement was comprehensive and very, very clear. So it's, I don't know, it just kind of makes um, the arguments that he tries to make all that more ridiculous in seeing,
Yeah.
how everything was played out, how everything was spelled out to him very directly and clearly. So it's, when he comes up with his argument as if he was bamboozled into taking this plea and it came out of nowhere and he didn't understand and they forced him to and he knew that he could have beaten this type of a thing.
Mhm.
And it's just not true. It's
Right.
just not true. Yeah. So it's interesting to do that.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts?
Not really.
Yeah.
Just Lorne is weird. He never understands the assignment. He never
Mhm.
understands what's expected of him.
Okay.
He says irrelevant things. I think they're irrelevant. Um, and he sucks.
All right.
And yeah. And the illustration that came with the crash report was very entertaining. It's
It's
funny to
very
put,
entertaining, yes.
yeah, it really helps your imagination get to work to picture it in your mind. So I'm really glad we got that. And I would like to say thank you to Lyric for getting us that.
Yes, thank you so much. So if you
Yes.
see her in the chat anywhere, she does drop in from time to time.
Mhm.
So we must salute her.
Good job.
Good job. Exactly. So, well, then we will see you next time when we'll have a lot more to say. And Amanda James will also have a lot more to say about
Yeah,
Mr.
probably.
Armstrong. Yeah, I'm sure that she will.
Mhm.
So until then, take care.